All right, everybody, welcome to the Crypto Virtual Summit, where we interview top experts in the cryptocurrency and blockchain industry. I am your host, Amateo, and today I'm going to be interviewing Eyal Hertzog from Bancor. Did I pronounce that properly?
Almost. It's
Almost.
Eyal.
Eyal, okay. And where's that from?
The name?
Yes. What's your
It's a Hebrew
ethnicity?
name.
It's a Hebrew. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Amazing. Eyal is a venture-backed technology entrepreneur for over 20 years, founder of Meta Cafe, which I know some of us old school internet geeks were quite the fan of, and is Israel's fastest-growing video sharing site, reaching over 50 million unique visits at its peak. Previously founded the Contact Networks, one of the first social networks in 1999. Eyal has been an outspoken thought leader on cryptocurrency in Israel and is a talented piano and bass musician, as well as the founder of the Bancor Network. So welcome. We're really excited to have you here today.
I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate the time. I know that you're in big demand recently. You have a long-standing history in the tech industry, and I was just wondering if we could start with you sharing with us the story of how you first got involved in cryptocurrency and blockchain, and what made you take the leap from what you were already doing and into this new kind of volatile adventure.
So, in 2003, I started Meta Cafe, and I've been there for 7 years, which were very exciting 7 years because, it started crazy where we had this vision of user-generated content and created a platform for sharing not just video, it was with images and text and, audio and all kind of stuff in the beginning. And it grew up very, very fast. We had like an algorithm to detect the best videos around and, measuring user engagement. And we grew from like few thousand users every day to 1 million users every day.
Wow.
In the course of 6 months. It's an amazing period. But, I had a big miss. I had a big miss because I was thinking about this new medium in the old terms. I did not realize the long tail. I thought it's going to be like in TV where you have the hits and everyone is talking about the hits. But, online video is nothing like that. Online video is, if we compare the kind of videos that you watch and maybe we do have actually some in common,
Sure.
but it's even
For
in
the most part,
blog,
it's different.
it is different.
It's different.
Everyone watch, and this is the phenomenon that Chris Anderson, from the editor of Wired magazine, was able to detect like back in 2000, I think in 5, it was funny story. I mean, my co-founder one day get to my desk and say, look at this Wired article. There's a new article called The Long Tail. You got to read it. I never have. When I figure out that was, quite a big miss, it was already too late because, the long tail is really 99% of the market when we were left with 1% of the market, which in the market of winner takes it all, when we saw, YouTube rise like to be like one of the top 10 websites in almost no time. So 2010, I came back to Israel and I actually became a user of the technology that I have built. I actually became a user of the long tail. And I started watching videos and, listening to podcasts and reading articles like 10 hours a day for almost 2 years.
Wow.
And I was like, amazed by the kind of stuff that you can find online. And that wasn't there when I started Meta Cafe in 2003. I mean, and I was busy the entire time. And as I was studying, I started to run into kind of conspiracy website talking about how money is being made by central banks and the history of money. And I was like blown away. And then at some point I started to research
just hold on. You created a place for creators to share their content, and then it wrapped you into the conspiracy world just because that's what naturally they were attracted to posting. That's incredible. I'm a conspiracy theorist, at heart, so God, I just love that. It's incredible.
Yeah, so it was funny, and I then I was researching, and actually in one of the more famous conspiracy podcasts called the Corbett Report,
Hmm.
back in 2011,
A while ago.
there was an episode in May about Bitcoin.
Oh, wow.
And I was blown away. I thought to myself, "Wow, the world sucks. The world sucks. The world sucks." And like, here's the solution.
Hmm.
Here it is. I was blown away that you couldn't believe, and I was actually quite delusional because I thought to myself, "Oh, the entire world is gonna discover that, and this is gonna explode." And actually, it looked like that with that because when I saw it was
Oh, yeah, at that
$6.
time. That was the bull run before the big
Yeah,
correction in
yeah.
2013. Yeah.
It was even before that. I'm talking
Yeah.
about 2011.
That's what I'm saying. Like it was on
It
the up
was
and up at that time.
so it was $6 when I found out about it.
Whoa.
Days later, it was $8, where I bought some. I managed to buy some, and then I tried to convince my wife to spend all our money on Bitcoin. She didn't agree, but some chunk of it she did.
Yeah.
And then it went up to $12 and 16, and I'm sending email to everyone in my mailing list, everyone that I
Wow.
have his email. I'm sending him, this is the next thing, buy this thing, it's amazing, look at the graphs, it's going to change the world, it's a currency. And some people did, like 3 out of hundreds
I'm
actually actually bought some Bitcoin,
sure they're happy
and
about
and and and
that.
it's going up, and it's going to $30, and then it crashes to $2, which is even lower than the price I discovered it.
Yeah, and that crash lasted like 18 months, like 2 years, right? Like it
I
was.
mean, that crash, it lasted quite a bit, and but it slowly started to recover from that. And the Wired magazine had this article, "The Rise and Fall of Bitcoin."
Oh, wow.
At that time, just as it crashed to $2, I actually managed to buy some Bitcoin at $2. I mean, believe it or not, this is like the thing I'm proud of the most. But I haven't got a lot of those crypto left because right after that, I started to think what I'm going to do there.
Hmm.
And I went to Bitcoin Talk Forum. I actually thought to do what BitPay are doing, and I met the
Uh-huh.
BitPay guys on the forum, and I said, okay, so someone is doing that. Then I
Hmm.
wanted to create like a DAO,
Yeah, yeah.
and and I posted the posts are still there. I call it an open Bitcoin business, OBB. That's
Interesting.
that's my nickname on GitHub. So I was thinking about that, and actually, funny story. Eric Verhis from
Hmm.
Shapeshift send me a private message on on that time that he would like to join me and invest in that thing. And but I talked to VCs in Israel, and they all thought I was crazy because
Wow.
I was I'm very familiar with all the kind of VC industry. I've been 20
Right.
years part of that, and they all thought I went nuts. Add to that the conspiracy theories. You can imagine what went through their heads.
I'm
So
sure.
so at that point, I started to think about Bitcoin as a user generated currency,
Hmm.
like the first one, and figuring out that if there's one, there's going to be a long tail. I mean,
Hmm.
I'm not going to do the same mistake twice.
Hmm.
And on 2012, we created a company called AppCoin, which is essentially a platform for user-generated currencies.
Hmm.
And we started to run some pilot. I mean, the first pilot was a huge success. Just a community of moms who created a currency for them called Hearts. It was not even crypto; it's a centralized server. But we wanted to
Wow.
explore the idea of user-generated currency.
Wow.
And it was a huge success because, all the community members, like 10,000 moms, joined in no time, and they were having 1,000 transactions a day between them, like exchanging jewelry and kids' clothes and toys that
That's
borrow your.
remarkable.
It was like an amazing success, and as it gets to its peak, then we're seeing that it's starting a very slow and painful decline,
Hmm.
trying to figure out what's going on. I mean, that thing just exploded. Why is the decline? And to cut a long story short, the decline was because lack of liquidity.
Hmm.
Because it was like a computer network not connected to the internet. It
Mm,
could be useful, but it's like a million times more useful when it's connected to the internet. And we realized that we need to kind of find a
mm.
solution for that problem, but we couldn't, not on a centralized platform.
Wow.
Fast forward to 2016, where, we're trying different things, different models, different ideas. Not, it's a long period of time, but
Hmm.
2016, we're seeing like Ethereum starting to get,
Yeah,
stable and mature, relatively speaking.
for sure.
And we're starting to think, maybe we should do something on that platform. So as we dive into Ethereum and figuring out, how this smart contract works, I started to think, because, really understanding smart contracts is only possible after you start designing
Mm,
system for such smart. I only understood it after I
mm.
started designing for that, because it's a new state of mind. It's like, if you never did anything to build it, like a database, a
Right.
relational database, you don't think that way. But
Yeah.
and the same is true for smart contracts. You
Or
don't
like a
think that way.
CRM, like a customer
Yeah.
relationship management system. You don't think about all the different ways you can interact with an audience until you
Mhm.
actually get into the back end of the system. So I totally get that.
So as we were looking into that, it slowly started to build the concept behind Bancor Protocol.
Mm,
That, with Ethereum, we can probably create a liquidity mechanism which would make even small scale user generated tokens always liquid.
mm,
And the funny thing that only like a month or two after we start working on that, we figured out that this solution can work for any token
wow.
and any tokenized asset.
Mm,
So it was not just about, it was about enabling liquidity for any token, because, a currency like hearts for moms will never be traded in exchanges with market
mhm,
makers. So it will never get liquid. And this is how liquidity is provided in today's world,
mm,
through for-profit market makers using for-profit exchanges. And this is how it works, but it's not working for small-scale tokens. So it's like, it's blocking the long tail.
mm.
It's preventing. It's like, without YouTube, you're not going to have a long tail of videos. Without
Right.
blogs, you're not going to have a long tail of writers. Without subreddit, you're not going to have a long tail of forums. Without liquidity, you're not going to have a long tail of currency. And
Mm,
and 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 it came from that direction, but we actually figure out that this mechanism is simply better than the world currently uses,
mhm.
which is bid ask exchanges that are actually susceptible to a very simple attack called pump and dump,
Yeah.
where people are buying and selling from themselves in order to pump prices of a token. And there's actually rules against it all around the world, because it's a known vulnerability. But guess what? Those rules are not enforceable on crypto.
Hmm.
And Bancor Protocol actually is like an
Yeah.
antivirus to that disease, because you cannot pump and dump tokens that are um, essentially using the Bancor Protocol.
Hmm.
And the Bancor Protocol can be actually applied on any token, existing ERC token. You can just, and it doesn't need to be applied by the issuer. It can be applied by anyone.
Does it have to be an ERC?
Currently, we work with ERC tokens as well as, Ether, of course.
Hmm.
But we look at BNT as a cross blockchain
Hmm.
token, and we
That was my
we
sense.
actively monitor what's happening. We're not blockchain developers. I
Right.
always laugh about it. I'm not a technology developer. I'm making technology accessible to people. I design experiences. I
Mm.
use technology, but I make it accessible to people through building experience. This is what I know how to do. I always build like consumer facing
Mm.
solutions for end users. And there are great smart guys that know how to secure blockchain for Sybil attack, and I have a lot of respect for them, and I
Hmm.
let them do their job. And as soon as we start seeing solid solution for cross blockchain value transfer, so essentially enabling you to move tokens from one blockchain to another,
Hmm.
so we're going to be the first to adopt these kinds of solution and enable essentially, because Bancor is a decentralized liquidity network. This is what it is. And the hub of this network is the BNT token.
Mm-hmm.
This is like, if you have more BNT, if you stake more BNT, you have a faster, I would say, connection to the liquidity network, or wider, broader connection, because now you can convert higher amounts.
Mm-hmm.
As more BNT you stack, you can essentially convert higher amounts without affecting the price drastically. Because it's all about what is liquidity. Liquidity is how much you affect the price when you buy, with $1,000, $10,000, $100,000, $1 million. If you buy with $1 million, you barely affect the price. You have high liquidity. But if $10,000 crashes the price, then it's probably low liquidity. So it's a range, right? This is how it works in today's world. And Bancor Protocol essentially enable token issuers or anyone, again, it can be applied by anyone, to take liquidity into their own hand and have like guaranteed, predictable, on-chain, decentralized liquidity using smart contracts. And this is something that you cannot do without smart contracts. This is only smart contracts enable you to do that, because we use smart contract in order to issue currencies today. This is ERC20, right? But, rarely do we think that that contract can actually hold assets. So today you can issue money that have money, that owns money, and have a logic of how to handle that money that it owns. So BNT token, for example, owns tens of millions of dollars of Ether. And through that, you can purchase BNT by sending Ether to BNT, or you can liquidate your BNT simply by sending back the tokens to the contract and getting Ether in return in market prices. And the reason it's always in market prices, because if it's not, arbitrageurs are incentivized to make it so.
We're going to break this down a little bit for the audience, because I want to make sure that they understand it. But
yeah, sure.
The more that I've looked into Bancor, the more I've realized how revolutionary what you're doing is, and how you're actually solving a problem that even decentralized exchanges would eventually run into. Because even if they're a decentralized exchange, there's a lot of talk about them. There's a lot of hype about what's in store with people being able to decentralize the process of exchanging liquidity from wallet to wallet. However, that doesn't prevent market manipulation, nor does it necessarily mean that the liquidity is rapidly available, right? Because it's still required that somebody's selling for me to be buying, and that we're going to have a price fluctuation as a result of that purchase mechanism. And Bancor, through its smart token, seems to create a rapid liquidity outside of that necessity. And that's wildly revolutionary.
Thank you.
Yeah, the reason being, so that our audience understands, it means that you can essentially, through Bancor's smart token liquidity network, buy and sell tokens that don't require someone on the other end to be selling, right? Because at some point that liquidity will be fulfilled, because the network functions as such and knows how to store that value in the smart contract.
The thing I like to say is Bancor Protocol will guarantee liquidity, but it's not guaranteeing the price. Because if everyone is selling, the price will go down and down and down and down, and people are buying, it will go up and up and up. And the price will always look for the equilibrium point where you have the same volume of buying and selling, which reflect the current market sentiment. And if the sentiment change, a new equilibrium point will be found. And again, this work in conjunction with many exchanges, thanks to arbitrage. It's just the same way that exchanges keep their price synced with each other, because it creates a financial incentive for arbitrageurs to do so, to buy when it's where it's cheap and sell where it's expensive, thus affecting the prices. So the same kind of decentralized ecosystem of arbitrage applies here, and essentially connect that to the existing mechanism of liquidity providers, and essentially extending the liquidity from the contract from the smart contract to the exchanges.
Mm.
Because yeah.
Hypothetically, Bancor's liquidity network managing the spread between the valuation of currencies, assuming that Bancor grows to exponential user adoption, which, I imagine it will. We're seeing a lot more money moved on Bancor. Could it essentially help stabilize some of the volatility of these tokens? Right. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
Could you explain
that's exactly it. Because the way that it works, I mean, think of Bancor as something that a smart token is a token with a built-in non-profit automated market maker. Now, the market maker, it's actually extremely simple how it works. The market maker that is built into the token, let's take BNT as an example. So it has a market maker to Ether. So the only logic that the market maker follows in BNT case is that the balance of Ether should always be exactly 10% of the market cap according to which the smart contract will buy or sell BNT to you. So let's say there is 10,000 Ether inside BNT right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you will able to buy BNT according to a market cap of 100,000 Ether.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you can sell BNT according to a market cap of 100,000 Ether.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the way that the prices calculate is that if you're buying like 10,000 Ether worth of BNT, so the price is going to be calculated as if you bought it way after way, infinitely small pieces, and the price was calculated after each one. So depending on how much you spend to buy or how much you're wanting to sell, you'll get a price which reflects exactly, the amount that you're trying to buy or sell, as if it will affect the market. It's called slippage, but here it's very predictable slippage. And guess what? There is no spread. The same price applies for buying and selling because it's a non-profit market maker. It's not trying to make money off of you. It's a contract.
Right. So it's a stable contract and the liquidity is being dripped through the smart token so that it maintains stability, but also it's because that reserve is acting as a functional reserve, which means it's not subject to that market manipulation or to those swings because it's a reserve, right? So it's creating not only a liquidity network maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's also creating what we would call like a standard, something that balances the network because it's being able to stabilize on a higher liquidity utility and smart contract platform.
In fact, it is adjustable liquidity.
Adjustable, okay.
This ratio of 10%, if I take it to 2%, I will get standard liquidity that, you will get in exchanges. 2% will give you that. And you know why it's 2%? Because it's like looking at an exchange and seeing 2% of the market cap of the token in the order book. I mean, you never saw order book that big.
Yeah.
2% of the market cap. So 2% ratio is actually pretty solid liquidity, but we use 10% because we want like an extreme liquidity to Ether, because we want to enable BNT is a network token. The network token means that its purpose is to be held by other tokens, not by other human beings. And by being held by other tokens, it provides the liquidity pathway for those tokens to any other token or Ether, and soon, other tokens in other blockchains or Bitcoin or what have you, as we will have that. But you'll be able to get from anyone to anyone within 2 hops to BNT and to, the target token. So that's how it forms the network.
So in that sense, Would you consider the BNT token both utility and platform, meaning that it serves as a function of utility for the liquidity to run over, but at the same time, they can go through BNT and develop smart contracts to create their own tokenized assets?
So essentially, BNT is just one smart token, but you can go to our website. You can take the source code on our GitHub, and you can build.
Mm-hmm.
You can deploy your own smart
That's what I
token.
was wanting to focus on. Yeah. So
Yeah,
other people can launch smart tokens, which means,
this is how it's done.
yeah, and the user
There's no
interface, they
platform.
can do it. An
There's
average
no
person can do it.
platform. There's no platform for you to kind of be on. That's the, people get confused with that. You're not building anything on a Bancor platform. What
Mm-hmm.
you're doing is you're deploying your own smart contract that you control
Mm-hmm.
by using BNT as your gateway for liquidity. You become part of the Bancor network.
Mm-hmm.
And we feature you on our website, and you get the widget, and you become part of this large, nice network of liquidity that we work very hard to build and improve. And it's being live and working for the past few months. When and that's what it means. But it's nothing is happening on our
Uh-huh.
platform. We're just providing a simple user interface to execute on-chain transactions.
Mm-hmm. Which is, in a way, though, really impressive because of the fact that currently, if the average person with a good idea does want to create their own smart token and participate in a liquidity network at this stage of the game, it's relatively challenging. And not only that, but there's a number of hurdles that one would have to go through, not to mention, the fundraising aspect of it. It seems like this makes it much more user friendly for people to create their own smart tokens and smart contract platforms. Is that right?
Yeah, and we haven't launched like the full self-service
Mm-hmm.
user experience. We are planning to, but we're starting by building the user experience required in order to kind of hold the token and buy and sell, integrating that to MetaMask and to Parity and our Web3 clients. And so we're kind of beginning with creating the environment in which you can hold and convert any token using any web browser, mobile or desktop.
Mm-hmm.
Now, kind of the next phase of that is to make it really, really simple to issue your own smart token, maybe conduct a small fundraising, even if it's for a local coffee shop. And it
Sure.
could be for anything, because again, the whole idea of Bancor Protocol is that it's disconnect volume from liquidity. You don't need to have volume in order to be liquid. And this is something that we're kind of almost trained to think as absolute true. How can you have liquidity without volume? Guess what? This is the result when you can teach money how to use money. Because if you think about it, what we solved here, it has a name. It's called the double coincidence of wants problem, coined by Jevons on 1875. That it's basically the problem that money solves for barter. Because with barter, you need double coincidence of want. You want what you offer, you need to want one. And then we have a transaction. That's pretty rare. And money solves that problem because it makes this process asynchronous.
It doesn't require you to have a chicken and me to have a fur coat in order for us to exchange. If I have a fur coat and you want it, money solved that problem with the idea of, okay, well, I want that, I can do an exchange. But now we're saying, hey, I've got this fur coat, I can put it into the network and get liquidity. Doesn't necessarily mean, I have to have a huge market interest for fur coats in order to kind of put that up there and still have liquidity run through the network.
And to the exchanges, if you think about it, it's just matchmaking for barter, because you're matchmaking with someone with the opposite wants.
It's true. That's very much the case, actually. I never thought of it like that, and it kind of expands the idea of a barter network, and maybe in essence we are just giving people each other's tokens with a valuation that we can both agree on. But that does seem still like an early stage of development when we're talking about the power of networks and the power of liquidity, and the fact that we can advance this so that people are free to buy and sell without those hindrances of somebody else on the other end having something that we want.
I like to say that liquidity is the internet of value, because this is what connects different network of values to each other. This is what enables me to move value from one token to another, from US dollars to Apple shares to bonds to crypto to whatever. This is the liquidity is what enables me to kind of connect all those sub networks of value, all those currencies, to one big giant network. And we like to talk about the internet of value, but guess what? We don't have an internet of value. Because if we had like a bunch of network and people running with floppy disks between them, that wouldn't be an internet. But that's what we have today. Those networks are connected to each other by human labor, by actual for-profit market makers on exchanges that are providing liquidity in order to gain revenue. And, they should be paid because they are providing a valuable service, but so are drivers.
Right.
It doesn't mean that technology of self-driving car cannot replace it.
Right. And simultaneously, it also means that Bancor is solving another issue, which is the potential for a new way to generate revenue by just expanding the network of liquidity, right? Where I think that these exchanges, they're taking these rates and these fees, and they're doing that for their own profit model. But in a network of liquidity, the utilization of the tokenized asset in the network expands its value, thus meaning that you're not only solving a problem, but you're actually demonstrating a new model of enhancing something of value. I'm not going to say that it's profit. I'm going to say that you're enhancing something of value, which means that Bancor itself benefits through the expansion of the liquidity network, and that itself is is enough, right?
So I agree, and I think this is the model that tokens have brought to the world. This is, we see some success cases today of what I like to call online economies. It's not a company, it's not a for-profit entity, it's an online economy. And an online economy is essentially a collection of for-profit entities. Just like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is an online economy. Economy is defined by the currency used in that economy. And the purpose of the economy is not to make money. It's actually a non-profit. The purpose of the economy is to grow. And when the economy grows, all the economy members benefit. And with
the rising
Bitcoin,
tide lifts all boats.
Exactly. And with Bitcoin, you have all those for-profit entities, like Coinbase, or used to be Silk Road, or all these guys are different entities active in the Bitcoin economy and, the Ethereum economy. So Bitcoin was an economy around a permissionless decentralized currency. It did great. But Ethereum is economy which, enables smart contracts. And the first killer app that was legitimate for crypto happened on Ethereum, which is venture financing. And it actually took over venture financing at early stage all around the world, which is pretty staggering. I never seen any disruption like that in all my career. And it happened in my field.
It also happened for Bancor.
Yeah, but it's really crazy because venture financing is still a niche application, relatively speaking, but it's a very important one because it's one of three ways that people use money to interact with each other. The first one being commerce, the second one being loans, and the third one is venture financing. So commerce, we cooperate. It's a form of collaboration. Everyone does it. Lending is, I don't need this amount of money now. I'm going to give it to you because I trust you to give it back with interest. So I'm renting you money. And that's also something people do if they use a credit card. But venture financing, it's hard to think about many people that were ever involved in venture financing transaction. And venture financing is when I give you money because I believe that you can create value and I want to share in the upside. It's a very different transaction that occur, but a very rare one. But it's a very important one because this is what pushes the world forward. I mean, those miracle devices are, a direct result of venture financing. And venture financing, the people who are participating in that are actually the new age leaders. So they're the head of the pyramids that are engaged in venture financing. And, so it's a very important segment, but a very small one. And the reason that it was so successful there, by the way, is because this is the only usage of money which is not so sensitive to volatility. Because volatility, it kills commerce. You need a stable coin for commerce because you don't want to, it has to be tied to the value of the commodities, right?
By the time I send it to someone, if it loses 20%, we've got a problem.
Exactly. And for lending, it's even more important for the currency to stay stable. But guess what? For venture financing, it's not the most important thing because you're getting a lot of money for a long time and you don't really know how much you need or not.
Right.
And, the volatility is actually trending upwards, so that's not a bad thing. So, for venture financing, actually, crypto is good already, but not for the other users. Actually, a few days ago, the Maker DAO, they released DAI, the stable coin. I'm really following that. I'm excited about it if it works.
There's quite a few people who are really excited about stablecoin.
Yeah, because that's, every central bank in the world, its only purpose is to maintain a currency which is stable relative to the price of commodities. This is like the most basic financial instrument in existence, and we don't have the crypto version of that other than Tether, which kind of scares some people.
Yeah, naturally. Well, there's all sorts of reasons for that, but it sounds like it's very clear to me that when people are watching this summit and people are tuning in, a lot of the reasons why they want to learn and educate themselves is because they see this volatility. They see 150% gains in 24 hours and they see 70% losses in 24 hours. And all of that's really significant. It's intense. So when you come in and you look at the fundamental economics of how this is all functioning, we immediately go, okay, for mainstream adoption of decentralized liquidity and the movement of money, it's required that we have some form of market stability. And so, of course, something like stablecoin would come across your radar and be attractive. But it's also, I think, why Bancor has attracted so much attention is for this very reason. It is to balance the liquidity and also to give people maybe a sense of safety in such a crazy marketplace.
Yeah, because when one of the things that when we talk to token issuers and we talk to a lot of them, we ask them a simple question: do you think that your holders and potential holders would be happy to know that they will have guaranteed liquidity for their token?
That's right. And there's so many ICOs who are now under their ICO valuation due to the fact of a lack of healthy, balanced liquidity in the network that could stabilize the token itself, meaning that it's so subject to people getting in and seeing, oh, I made 10, 20% profit, everybody dumping, and these kinds of issues. So
Definitely. There's something called a liquidity discount, which some research measured like 30 or 40%, that an asset is it's worth 30% more if it's liquid, just by being liquid.
Interesting. Okay, so just by the asset having liquidity, it's worth 30% more.
Which makes a lot of sense.
It does, because if you can't move it, it's not worth anything. Like if it's stuck, like what's $100 that's glued to your pocket? You know what I mean? Like that doesn't work.
If it takes time, it takes time or chance, or there is a risk, you want to move it, maybe you'll be able to, maybe not. I mean, that uncertainty is actually very, reduce a lot of the value of the asset. There's something great about the fact that you have an asset and you say, I can sell it right now. It has a price.
Right.
Price changes, and that's a good thing that the price changes, because if I would tell you, come to the Israeli stock market, all our shares are very stable, you say, no, I'm not getting even close to that. I mean,
Totally.
it's not a good thing for a stock to be stable, because it should represent some kind of a sentiment, a market sentiment, and be a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way. When someone is doing something great and everyone is like buying the stock, it's actually make the organization stronger, increase its capital, and let them do more great things. So it's not, a stable coin is something, as I said, which is important for commerce and for lending.
Right.
But for venture financing and sharing the upside, volatility is the game.
Right. And that's maybe why we've seen the venture funding and the ICO boom happen so quickly, but we're actually seeing more of the lending exchange mechanism as a form of utility not happening as fast, right? Or kind of getting up to speed. I think 2018 probably has that in store, but I think the ventures go, okay, cool. We love this volatility. We can navigate this, but the average person who's trying to use the network, that's a little bit different. It's apparent to me that the smart token algorithm that Bancor has developed is now starting to garner a lot of mainstream attention. There was an incredible blog that was written about you guys just the other day, and I really loved reading it, knowing that I was going to get to talk to you personally. Who was this? Was this a mastermind creation of you and the team? Who developed, and how did you guys develop this smart token algorithm? Now that it's starting to garner such mainstream attention, I think people are realizing that you do have something revolutionary.
So I'll tell you how it happened, how it went. The first thing is that we were thinking about manual operation. That a token issuer can have some reserve of another token, and can manually set up the exchange rate in order to make sure that the reserve never dries out. So if the reserve balance is decreased, what does it mean to hold a reserve? So if a token issuer has a reserve in another token, so he can enable exchanging between the two tokens according to a rate that it defines. And if people are exchanging the token to that reserve, then the balance of that reserve that he has is going down. And if people are buying the token with that reserve token, then the balance will increase. And we thought of it even as kind of a manual solution, but that is obviously centralized and require trust. And when we started to work on Bancor and on Ethereum, and we started to think maybe that could be automatic. And the first kind of revelation was after playing with simulating it on a spreadsheet, essentially. Not we didn't use. I'm not a big mathematician or anything like that.
Sure.
And so we were using a spreadsheet to kind of simulate kind of how to calculate what the price should be at every given moment. And the first revelation is that the reserve should maintain a fixed ratio to the market cap. That was like the first kind of revelation that I had, and then after I kind of discovered that, I said, okay, so how do you kind of calculate the price of the token? So now I know how to calculate the price of the token, because if the reserve is keeping a ratio to the market cap, you can divide it by the supply, the price of the token. But if someone is buying or selling, then
a little bit of a wrench in the simplicity of that.
I'm like, initially I thought, if someone is buying like a lot, then he's going to get the same price for everything he buys. That doesn't make sense. And it also kind of put the risk that if someone is selling a lot, let's say if you have 10% in your reserve and you're selling more than 10% of the token, the reserve will be drained. That doesn't make sense. So I thought to myself, maybe I should limit the transaction size. But as I was actually consulting with my wife about this as well, and there's like, the formula of continuous interest was kind of piquing my interest, which is like how you calculate interest as if you calculate it every second. So, every minute you accumulate more interest, and the next, and it's like it's calculating it based on infinitely small iterations, and it's a derivative. It's a form of derivative.
Right.
And I look at that function. I say, could I do something like that? I actually tried to get advice from several people that are mathematicians. They couldn't help me for some reason. I don't know why, but the idea is that
applying ratio derivatives to token economics, I'm sure that they just were not going for it.
And so it is eventually I had like an Excel that I put a formula. I tried a different formula each time, and I just wanted to see that if I buy 100 tokens or 10 times 10 tokens, I get to exact same price. So I had a goal. Like, what do I want to get to? Like goal seeking, if you will. But I started to kind of trial and error different formulas and change it, and did that for like 3 days.
Wow.
And by the end of the 3 days, I somehow in a weird way I got to that specific formula, and that was something that was, again, achieving very, very simple task. That, again, if you buy 100 or you buy 10 times 10 or you buy 100 times 1, the resulting price will always be the same. And it's because so that's how it went.
Yeah. So I want to shift gears just a little bit, and I just wanted to ask, Bancor became kind of notorious for having one of the biggest ICOs in history. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you guys raised just over $180 million.
No, 153.
153. Okay. $153 million. Still a big sum of money. I'm just wondering, how was that for you and the team? Was this something that was expected? Was it a bit shocking? And I'm also kind of curious to understand what it was like for you behind the scenes. Going, okay, now there's market pressure, there's people looking at us. What was this experience like to run such a big ICO?
Oh, it was so the first thing, it was like the day of the ICO was absolutely horrible. I mean, it was so stressful that you couldn't believe, and I think it was especially stressful in our case, because what happened was that as the time came and everything was ready, we started getting reports almost immediately for people that they cannot issue a transaction, that they cannot get a transaction through. And we thought maybe this is like an attack or this is something else, and we weren't sure, but eventually what it was is that Ethereum network got very, very congested, as well as my Ether was. So like half of the infrastructure just collapsed, and it was more, obviously more popular than we thought it would be.
Yeah.
And it seemed like nothing is coming through, but in the same time we're getting phone calls from everyone around the world, that is, and emails on Telegram, that people are trying but not succeeding. So we had this special policy that we said everything that goes in the first hour is welcome, but no one could get a transaction. Almost no one could get a transaction in the first hour. Very, very few were actually successful in terms of percentage. So we took a real-time decision that we're going to accept every transaction that was attempted in the first hour, which is kind of was our
your audio just cut out.
1, 2, 3 works.
Yep, we're all set.
Yeah, so as I said, we extended it. We issued like a blog post. We extended it a little bit because of the state of the network, and because we promised to let the first wave in. And we actually didn't want to keep all that money. We had a price floor with like
Right.
$40 million deposit in the price floor for people, like as a money back guaranteed in the ICO price.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't about getting a lot of money at
Yeah,
all.
absolutely.
It was about
Honoring
letting
the commitment
people,
to the people who wanted to participate.
yeah. And we got so much negative feedback
Mm-hmm.
for extending the 1 hour to 3 hours, which was effectively 2.5 hours. We got so much negative feedback that I think is hunting us ever since,
Yeah.
among many people in the community. And I I want to come out and say, guys, we're not doing anything because we're greedy, or we're doing that for the last 7 years. We're not kind of opportunistic kind of people that thought that crypto is a quick way to make money.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to build something real, and we're doing what we believe is right at every given moment. And I think there's a lot of negative sentiment in the industry to many people that don't always deserve it. Many
Mm-hmm.
people called scammers without a good investigation
Mm-hmm.
taking place. And
It seems there's both sides of it. There's the people who are propping up these coins and these ICOs that deserve some of that negative sentiment, and then there's those who don't, who are getting caught into the negative stigma. Is there anything else that you would like to share just to clear any of that negative stigma and help people understand why they should trust Bancor Network?
So I think one of the things that we found very challenging is that I can probably count on my hand the number of people that I met that really understood the benefits of Bancor Protocol before we talked. I can count them on my hand. It's really not trivial to understand that from reading white papers or articles on bits of points. And if I talk with someone for like good 10-20 minutes, they're probably going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have the opportunity to do that with everyone. But it's much easier on interactive session, because you can
that's why we're
focus
doing
on
interviews like this too, so
yeah.
that people can understand and you can talk to more people and share this. Mm-hmm.
And I think that just like people thought that Bitcoin is stupid in the beginning, and just like people thought that smart contracts are just not useful, it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
So who am I to expect everyone to get what we're doing? It's obviously not trivial, but it's if there's a message I like to carry, is that it's okay to criticize, but people should criticize only from the point of knowledge and understanding, after they did like real research, and not be quick on the trigger to kind of criticize stuff that they're not very familiar with. Because everyone that gets himself familiar with Bancor is really excited about the prospect of such technologies. And we release it to the world. We're doing everything we can. We're using all the resources in order to bring that message of guaranteed liquidity, the long tail of currencies. It's currency freedom, if you think about it. The choice of currency is the new embodiment of freedom. Because when I choose to hold my capital in a specific currency, I make that economy stronger, and I tie my financial future with that economy in which I'm holding my capital. And I can do that with several economies. And this is much more important than choosing a leader in the election. It has much more impact, and we don't realize that. But we're coming here in order to promote, I think, a big vision and something that we truly believe can make the world a better place. And this is why we even started to get into this field of digital currencies and online economies and all of that. And to get in return being called scammer, it's just, it's disappointing.
Yeah.
It's disappointing.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, I can imagine your frustration, especially when the fact that you're actually building a platform to help prevent market manipulation and scamming. So I think the irony of that is such as that, and I see this a lot actually inside of cryptocurrencies, where the networks and the coins who are really focused on developing trust seem to garner this weird antitrust market sentiment. And then what happens, there's others that I have in mind, but what happens is I feel like at some point people are going to tire out of of being on the less than positive end of market manipulation, pump and dumps, and arbitrage imbalances and evaluations that hurt them in the long haul as more people get entered into the space and they are a bit naive in wanting to participate. And then, naturally, as you saw with your other technological startups and things, you're going to see a migration from people who go, I'm tired of running into liquidity issues. I'm tired of trying to fulfill sell orders that can't because I got caught in a pump and dump scheme. And I would much, much rather be participating in something that's a lot more fair and balanced. And that seems to me to be the future driver of the real smart economy that's emerging.
Yeah. I agree.
What would you say to someone who's watching this, who has the bright idea to start an ICO and wants to go through the process that you went through? Because I feel like you've gone through the entire range, a lot more so than most ICO creators. That's my personal opinion. What would you say to that person entering into that space?
So, I would say that actually the space is very different than the time that we did an ICO. That, when we did it, there was like one ICO a week. Now there's like 20 a day.
Right.
So there's a lot more noise, and there's a lot more, I would say, need to, at least in the early stage, to raise funds directly from private investors. Now, luckily, there are many people that wish to get into this market in one way or another, and that's a good thing, I believe. But I would say, do not think that you're just going to post it online and get funding. This is not the case anymore. It might have used to be the case for a short while, but it's not the case anymore. So focus on getting the word out, learn how to pitch your concept. I think that one of the main challenges for many of the people that are working on ICOs is the ability to deliver the story. Because any a venture, whether it's venture for a for-profit company or online economy, doesn't matter. Any venture is comprised of the core vision of the actual implemented technology product and the story about the product, the marketing layer. And each of those layers is super, super critical.
So where ICOs maybe were able to get off the hook before giving these big abstracts, abstract white papers, abstract, algorithmic platforms or protocols, it seems like now it has to be brought down into much more of a practicality and an applicability, as well as a shareability for people to kind of grasp onto it because of how diluted the world is or the market is. Sounds like is what you're saying. We're getting close to wrapping up here, and I just wanted to ask a question that was, in 2018, this year, what is in store for Bancor? Is there any new tokens that you guys are listing that you can give a mention to? If you can't, by all means, please don't.
But we actually announced, there are like 60 announcements of tokens that have announced that are joining the Bancor liquidity network. 12 are already up there, and we look for to have many more. And
it's huge. Congratulations.
Thank you. And we really looking forward to opening up kind of the self-service, expanding to new blockchain. That is a big thing for us in 2018. And we're very, very excited to be part of this movement and part of this evolution and do our small part in, getting to this new age in which people can actually have and use repositories of information that are not controlled by any single entity. We believe this is revolutionary, that for the first time you can have a decentralized database, that you don't need a Facebook in order to do a Facebook. You don't need a Google in order to do a Google. You don't even, you can run your own health record and your own land registry, and all of that people can do on their own. The data belong to the people using it, and there's no need for a centralized entity controlling it. And I think that it's amazing to be part of that movement, and there's so many implications that it's a blackout on how do you call it? It's the event horizon is just pitch black. It's really hard to kind of figure out what's going to happen. I mean, if you asked me a month ago, I wouldn't tell you, Virtual Kitty is going to be the first Ethereum killer app. It wasn't on my mind.
Yeah, I'm sure. Nor did we expect. I was watching CNBC yesterday, and they accidentally called fast money fast crypto, and I was like, what is going on right now? I was like, this is bizarre. I was like, this is getting really weird. This has been a really exciting interview, Eyal.
Thank you.
I've absolutely, you're just a warm, very generous person, and I think that shows. But you're clearly also a visionary, and you're touching on where things are going to be headed, and this decentralized future. And I think that's something that people really need to be inspired by, and understand that there's going to be new ways that we're going to do the practical things that we've been giving to other people to manage for us, because we haven't had the systems to do it ourselves.
It's the end of bureaucracy. Think about that.
I'm going to bring that one into my meditation practice. I could chew on that all day. That's amazing. Any final thoughts that you want to share when it comes to Bancor and just our audience and community as a whole?
We just most important thing for me is to ask the community to try out Bancor and to be as direct and as impolite as they possibly can, telling us why it sucks and how we can make it better. I believe
That's incredible. Tear it apart and tell us what the pieces are.
Exactly. I couldn't be more thankful for anyone that is doing that. We actually have a bounty program, so you can.
I was just about to ask, do you guys have a bounty for that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. So maybe all the devs can get in there and tear it apart and help you guys innovate and iterate. That's amazing. I have one last question, just because I've been seeing a lot happen. Will Bancor eventually be supporting NEP5 tokens that the Neo network is starting to issue, similar to the ERC20 tokens? Has that been something that you guys have looked at?
So yes, and we will be on any smart contract blockchain, as we are a liquidity network. We're not a blockchain. We are a layer above a blockchain.
Right.
Create a liquidity network that would allow you to move value between blockchains and between tokens, and use the best of breed technology in order to provide that. So definitely yes.
Fantastic. Amazing. Well, I think that wraps it up for us. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for being so generous. And I hope everyone enjoyed tuning in, and keep tuning in for more of these amazing interviews. And go check out Bancor Network. Give these guys feedback. I know that I'll personally be joining, because I'm excited to participate in the liquidity network and benefit from it as well, because I've been on the receiving end of some of these scenarios where I don't have access to liquidity due to market lockups and everything else. And it's an exciting thing. So thank you for what you're doing. It's going to revolutionize the industry, and more power to you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.